If I had arrived 10 minutes earlier, I would have had the room to myself. 10 minutes. That's all it would have taken to unpack my bags, claim the bed by the window, and stretch out in peace. But no, fate had other plans. Because when I pushed open the door to my new dorm room, there he was. Ryan Carter. The same boy who's been a thorn in my side since freshman year. Tall, smug, already lounging like he owned the place with his duffel bag flung on the other bed and his shoes kicked off in the corner. No, I said aloud before I could stop myself. Nope. Absolutely not. He looked up from his phone slowly, like he'd just woken from a nap. His eyes scanned me lazily before the corner of his mouth curled up. Emma, he said, like it was a punchline. I was hoping for someone boring. But this is much more fun. I should have walked out. I should have marched down to the housing office and demanded a change. But I froze, because deep down, I already knew what had happened. Budget cuts. Room consolidations. Some intern at admin probably thought putting 2 high-performing students together would be efficient. Never mind that Ryan and I had been academic rivals for 3 straight years. Never mind that we couldn't go a week without one-upping each other in class. Never mind that he once stole my spot in a research program by turning in his project 5 minutes before mine. I gripped the handle of my suitcase until my knuckles ached. This is a mistake, I muttered. You're telling me, he said, stretching. I thought I'd get some peace this semester. Guess not. I rolled my eyes and stepped inside, dragging my suitcase behind me. I wasn't going to let him get to me. Not today. Not when I'd worked so hard to get here. Honors dorm. Top scholarship. The best room on campus. I wasn't going to let Ryan Carter ruin that. Again. I tossed my bag on the remaining bed and pulled out my phone, already typing out an email to request a room reassignment. But Ryan was faster. He stood and held out a folded slip of paper. Already tried. They said housing's full. Unless you want to sleep in the library, this is it. I snatched the paper and read the reply. Confirmed. No available rooms. No swaps. No exceptions. You've got to be kidding me, I whispered. Oh, I wish I was, he said, flopping back onto his bed. But hey, look on the bright side. Now we can settle who's really smarter once and for all. I glared at him. This isn't a game. Everything's a game, he said, eyes flicking to mine. Some of us just play it better. I turned away before he could see my face flush. I hated how calm he looked. How effortlessly he carried himself. Like none of this bothered him. Like he hadn't spent the past 3 years turning every class into a battlefield. And now we were stuck in one room. One bathroom. One tiny fridge. And 2 twin beds placed far too close together. The tension wasn't just awkward. It was electric. Like the kind of quiet that builds before a thunderstorm. And the worst part? I didn't know if I wanted to scream at him, or something else. That night, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling while Ryan scrolled on his phone across the room. Every flick of his screen, every breath he took, every shift in the mattress, grated on my nerves. But I couldn't stop thinking about that look in his eyes. The one he gave me when he said he liked this arrangement. The one that said he knew exactly what he was doing. I told myself I hated him. That I'd win this round like I always did. But deep down, something told me this semester wasn't going to be anything like the ones before. And Ryan Carter was about to become my biggest problem. Not because of our rivalry. But because of something much worse. Something I didn't want to name. Not yet. I first met Ryan Carter in high school, during an early admissions summer program where every student wore their ambition like a second skin. He sat 2 rows behind me in our first seminar, tapping his pen and humming under his breath while the professor lectured on neural networks. I turned around and shushed him. He smirked. That was the start. He won the debate competition that week. I beat him in the final math placement exam. From that point on, it was always me versus him. Essay scores, exam curves, lab competitions, scholarships, every single achievement was a match to be won. And we both hated losing. Our rivalry followed us to college like a shadow. We were always in the same courses, gunning for the same awards. Whenever I got a 97, he got a 98. Whenever he published an article, I submitted one the next day. The professors joked about how we pushed each other. What they didn't see was the silent war happening in every classroom, every hallway. A glare across the lecture hall. A sarcastic comment about my study habits. A mysteriously missing textbook I later found in the wrong section of the library. Ryan played the long game. And I matched him every time. But now, stuck in this dorm room with him, I realized something I hadn't before. He wasn't just clever. He was methodical. I watched him that first week, quietly. He made flashcards in the morning. He color-coded notes. He set alarms for every task and never once needed caffeine to keep going. His calm attitude was a mask. Underneath, he was relentless. The worst part? It made me respect him more than I wanted to. I tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on my own schedule. But the proximity made that impossible. His cologne lingered in the air after he left. His charger always ended up tangled with mine. We crossed paths constantly, at the fridge, the sink, the mirror. And every time, we exchanged comments like they were tiny landmines. "You're up early," he said one morning, watching me pour coffee. "Trying to make up for last night's disaster of a study session?" "You mean the one where I caught your mistake on the thermodynamics notes?" I replied sweetly. "Right. That one." He raised an eyebrow. "I was being generous letting you find it first." I sipped my coffee and stared him down. "You keep telling yourself that." He chuckled. "It's cute how competitive you are. And it's pathetic how much you pretend not to care," I snapped. That shut him up. For once. But his eyes lingered on me a beat too long, and I hated how my stomach flipped. I blamed the caffeine. That night, I found a corkboard he'd mounted over his desk. On it were his personal notes, pages of tightly written ideas, hypotheses, and annotated diagrams. They were brilliant. Sharp, precise. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. I always thought Ryan coasted by on talent alone. Seeing those notes proved otherwise. He worked just as hard as I did. Maybe harder. I didn't mean to snoop. I was just looking for the Wi-Fi password. But he walked in while I was reading a page pinned to the bottom corner. His voice was low, but firm. "Enjoying the view?" I jumped, knocking over a stack of textbooks. "I wasn't. This isn't snooping? Stealing ideas? I wouldn't put it past you." I straightened. "Your Wi-Fi label fell off." "I was just sure you were." He stepped closer. Too close. "Let me guess. You thought I got lucky all those times I beat you. That I just winged it. Didn't you?" I said, though my voice wavered. He stared at me for a moment, then leaned in slightly. "You think you're the only one who loses sleep over this?" His breath was warm. His voice, low. My heart beat faster than I wanted to admit. I swallowed hard. "We're not friends, Ryan." "I never said we were." He turned away, grabbed a towel, and headed for the bathroom. But just before closing the door, he looked back. "But you know you're not sleeping tonight." And he was right. I didn't. Not because of the noise. Not because of the temperature. But because of the one question I couldn't get out of my head. What if this rivalry had always been something else pretending to wear a fight? By the second week, the silence between us was as loud as the fights we weren't having. We moved around each other like chess pieces, calculating every step, every glance, every sarcastic remark. Ryan was too smooth, too careful. He'd brush past me in the hallway with a muttered "excuse me" and a smirk, as if he knew exactly how much space to invade without touching me. I kept my headphones on constantly just to block him out, even when they weren't connected to anything. We avoided direct arguments, but the tension was worse. It was tightrope thin and pulling tighter every day. So we made rules. We didn't talk about school unless it was unavoidable. We split the mini fridge. We agreed on alternating cleaning duty. No entering each other's side of the room without permission. No comments on what the other was doing. I typed up the list and taped it to the wall. Ryan added one more line at the bottom: no falling in love. I rolled my eyes and grabbed a pen to cross it out. He caught my wrist mid-move. Just a second too long. My breath hitched. His fingers were warm. His voice was calm. You really want to tempt fate that badly? I pulled away. There's no fate involved, just common sense. We don't like each other. We're not going to suddenly start writing love poems and braiding each other's hair. You sure? He said, eyes flicking down to my hand. I yanked it back. Positive. That night, I caught him studying with his glasses on. I didn't know he wore glasses. They softened his whole face, made him look less smug, more human. I stared for a beat too long, and he noticed. See something you like? He asked without looking up. Just surprised your brain needs help from your eyes, I muttered. And I'm surprised yours hasn't exploded from all that tension you carry, he shot back. Do you ever relax? Do you ever take anything seriously? Sure. Just not you. I bit back my retort and stormed out. I needed air. Needed to remember why I hated him. But every time I tried to list the reasons, my brain kept short-circuiting with the image of those stupid glasses and the way his voice dropped an octave when he was tired. We were opposites. He was chaos in calm clothing. I was structure in a tight ponytail. He flirted with everything that moved. I didn't have time for distractions. And yet, the next night, the power went out. An electrical issue in our building left us without lights, Wi-Fi, or outlets. I groaned and dropped my notes. Great. Now how am I supposed to finish my presentation? Candlelight, Ryan said, already pulling a box of tea lights from his drawer. What kind of psychopath keeps candles in a dorm? The kind who plans ahead, he said with a wink. 10 minutes later, the room was glowing with soft gold light. We sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by textbooks and flickering shadows. It was silent for a while. Peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Then he spoke. You really think I don't take things seriously? I looked at him, caught off guard. I think you hide behind jokes so no one can tell how badly you want to win. He blinked, surprised. You're not wrong. I know I'm not. You do that a lot, don't you? Assume you know everything. I shrugged. Only when I'm right. He leaned in slightly. And what if you're not? Then I learn. Fast. We locked eyes. His gaze was steady, unreadable. Mine, probably not. My heart was beating faster than I liked. His hand brushed mine as we both reached for the same pen. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. It wasn't like the stare-downs we had in class. This was something else. Something hotter. Closer. Real. And terrifying. I pulled back. We should focus. Right, he said, voice lower than before. Focus. But neither of us looked at our notes again. Because something had shifted. A silent rule, broken. And we both knew it. The morning after the blackout, I woke up earlier than usual and found Ryan already gone. His bed was made, the desk cleared, his side of the room unusually spotless. I should have felt relief. Instead, the empty room felt off balance. Like I'd opened a book to the middle and skipped a page. I replayed the night before in my head, the candlelight, the pen, the way our hands touched. And how I didn't move. Not right away. Not until it felt like something dangerous was starting to crack. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That we were both just tired. Stressed. Running on academic fumes. But that moment stayed with me all day, like a splinter under the skin. It wasn't until late that night that he came back. I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep, when he eased the door open and set his bag down gently. I peeked through one eyelid, watching him move around the room in the dark. He changed shirts, not noticing, or maybe not caring, that I was awake. His back was tense. Shoulders tight. He didn't speak. Neither did I. But even in silence, I felt everything. Something had shifted between us, and now every second felt like a countdown. The next day, I got sick. It started as a sore throat, then a fever, and before I knew it, I was stuck in bed with tissues, tea, and missed deadlines piling up. I tried to hide it at first, stubborn as always, but Ryan noticed. Of course he did. He didn't say anything the first day. Just watched me from his desk, brows furrowed. But on the second day, I woke up to find a bowl of soup on my nightstand. Still warm. Homemade. With a note. Don't talk. Just eat. I stared at the note for a long time, unsure whether to be annoyed or touched. I ended up sipping the soup slowly, trying not to enjoy it. Later that afternoon, I fell asleep on my notes. When I woke up, my laptop had been plugged in. The outline for my research paper was typed up in a neat, logical structure. Better than anything I would have managed delirious with fever. His voice drifted from the other side of the room. I didn't write it for you. Just organized what you already had. You're welcome. Thanks, I croaked, my voice barely audible. You still look awful, he added. But slightly less pathetic than yesterday. I rolled my eyes, but it took too much energy to respond. I turned my face into the pillow and let myself fall back asleep. For the next 2 days, he took care of everything. He brought meds, checked my temperature, picked up my notes from class without me asking. And he never said a word about it. No teasing. No bragging. Just quiet presence. When I was finally able to sit up and function again, I watched him from across the room as he scribbled something in a notebook. Why are you being nice to me? I asked, my voice still hoarse. He looked up slowly. Because you'd never let anyone else do it. You're assuming I need help. No, he said. I'm assuming you've spent so long proving you don't, you forgot what it feels like to let someone show up. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. He closed his notebook and leaned back. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. You're still the terrifying queen of the debate team. I stared at him, heart thudding. You're not half as annoying when you shut up. He smirked. You're cute when you're sick. I threw a pillow at him. He caught it midair. We both laughed, really laughed. For the first time since moving in. And that laugh felt like breaking a seal on something we'd both been holding back. We weren't just rivals anymore. We were something else. Something harder to define. Something that might change everything. The week after I got better, everything felt different. Not in an obvious way. We still bickered over who got to use the bathroom first. We still snarked at each other about who studied harder or who the professor liked more. But there was something under the surface now. A shift I couldn't ignore. He made 2 coffees in the morning instead of 1. I left post-it notes on the fridge when I finished the last yogurt. He started turning his music down before I asked. I stopped locking the bathroom door when I showered, just in case he needed to grab something. We were still drawing lines, but they were curved now. Softer. One night, we were both working late, me with my presentation, him outlining a research proposal. The room was quiet, just the sound of keyboards and occasional frustrated sighs. At some point, the rain started. A heavy downpour that made the windows rattle. I stood and pulled the curtain aside, watching the storm roll in. They said it might flood downtown, I said. Ryan didn't answer at first. Then I heard his chair slide back. You afraid of thunder? I scoffed. No. I like it. It's the silence before it that makes me nervous. He came to stand beside me, not touching but close enough to feel. I never thought you'd admit to being scared of anything. I'm not scared, I said. Just aware. Of what? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The air between us tightened like a wire pulled too far. I turned my head and he was looking at me. Really looking. Not in the way you glance at someone across the library or during a group project. It was the kind of look that searched for the truth you didn't want to say. Ryan, I started, but my voice was too soft. He took one step closer. Just one. Do you ever wonder, he said quietly, if we would have been different if we hadn't met as rivals? I froze. No, I said. Because I don't think we'd have looked at each other at all. His smile was sad. Maybe. The thunder cracked loud and sudden, making me jump. He laughed. I elbowed him in the side. Jerk. Admit it, he said. You're glad I'm here. I didn't say anything. But I didn't deny it either. Later that night, I was lying in bed, the storm still raging outside, when I heard him shift in his sheets. Can't sleep? I whispered. Not really, he replied. Too much on my mind. Like what? A pause. You. My heart skipped. Don't say that. Why not? Because I don't know what to do with it. You don't have to do anything. Just, don't lie to yourself. The storm went quiet for a moment. Just long enough for me to feel the heat of those words settle in my chest. I got out of bed and crossed the room before I could second-guess myself. He sat up slowly, eyes wide. I stood there, frozen between impulse and fear. This is a terrible idea, I said. Probably, he agreed. Then I kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was messy and sharp and years of tension colliding all at once. His hands were in my hair. Mine were grabbing his shirt. We didn't stop until we couldn't breathe. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Still rivals? He whispered. I smiled. Only if we're both losing. We didn't sleep much that night. Not because of the storm, but because for the first time, we weren't afraid to feel what had been simmering between us all along. And in the dark, between whispered jokes and tangled sheets, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to go back to the way it was. I didn't want to pretend anymore. I didn't just want to win. I wanted him. The next morning, I woke up tangled in a bed that wasn't mine. My legs were draped over his, my face pressed against his chest, and his arm was still looped around my waist like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like running. I didn't feel like calculating. I felt, still. Safe. And that scared me more than anything. Ryan was already awake, staring at the ceiling like he was reading something only he could see. You regret it? He asked without looking at me. No, I said, my voice raw from sleep. Do you? No. But I keep waiting for you to. I didn't move. Why? Because it's you, he said. You don't like losing control. I hated how well he knew me. I hated that he was right. But I didn't answer. I just laid there, listening to the sound of the rain against the window, the way his breathing shifted when I didn't pull away. Later, we didn't talk about it. We acted normal. Too normal. He went back to his desk. I went back to mine. We pretended like our bodies hadn't just broken every rule we wrote on the wall. But it wasn't the same. Every glance lingered. Every brush of a hand meant something. The room felt smaller now. More dangerous. And I didn't know what to do with any of it. For a few days, we danced around it. He'd say something snarky and I'd snap back, but with a smirk I couldn't hide. I'd catch him staring and pretend not to notice. Our rivalry hadn't ended. It had just mutated into something sharper, heavier, laced with a kind of longing that made breathing harder. Then the silence broke. It was the day of my final round in the national academic competition, and I almost skipped it. I'd been so caught up in everything, us, school, the storm in my chest, that I forgot to submit my final form. I was going to throw it all away because I was scared of messing up now that someone was watching. But Ryan didn't let me. He noticed the form sitting on my desk the night before and stormed into the library where I was hiding, furious. "You're seriously bailing now," he said. "After everything? It's just a stupid competition." "No, it's not. It's the one thing you swore you'd win. Don't shrink now." "Why do you even care?" I yelled. "Because I love you," he said. "And I've spent 3 years pretending I didn't. So yeah, I care." I stood there, stunned. Not because of the words, but because of how easily they landed. Like he'd been holding them for months. I swallowed hard. "You can't just say that to win an argument." "I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to get you to stop sabotaging yourself just because you're finally not alone." I hated that he was right. I hated that he knew me better than I wanted anyone to. But I went to the competition. And when I stood on that stage, clutching the mic, looking out at the crowd, I saw him at the very back of the room. Arms crossed. Eyes locked on mine. He didn't smile. Didn't nod. Just stared at me like I was the answer to a question he'd stopped asking. I won. Of course I did. But it didn't feel like the old wins. It wasn't about beating anyone. It was about showing him, and myself, that I could still be strong without being alone. That I could have both. After the ceremony, I ran down the hallway, my medal still hanging around my neck. He met me halfway and lifted me off the floor in one clean motion. "Told you," he said. "Don't get cocky," I whispered. "You're still in my bed." "Correction," he said, grinning. "We're in ours." And I didn't argue. Because it was true. We'd been rivals for so long we forgot how to be anything else. But somewhere between shared deadlines and stolen kisses, we found something more terrifying than competition. We found each other. The next few weeks felt like a dream I didn't trust yet. We still argued, over notes, over laundry, over who used the last clean mug, but now those fights ended with smirks, not silence. With teasing, not tension. With touches I didn't mean to linger as long as they did. It was strange to wake up every morning and not brace myself for war. Stranger still to catch Ryan watching me while I worked, his pen frozen mid-sentence like he was memorizing the way I chewed my pen cap or tapped my fingers when I was deep in thought. The rivalry hadn't vanished. It had just softened. Shifted into something that ran deeper than either of us admitted. It was in the way he waited up for me after late-night library sessions. In how he started keeping snacks I liked in the drawer next to his. In the way he touched me when no one was looking, not like a secret, but like a promise. He made me laugh without trying. He made me furious in 3 seconds flat. He challenged everything I thought I knew, and made me better without asking me to change. But for all the closeness, there were still things unsaid. He didn't bring up what we were. I didn't ask. Maybe I was afraid to know. Maybe we were both too used to competing to admit we were finally on the same side. Then one afternoon, I heard someone in the hallway mention his name. 2 girls at the coffee machine. "Ryan Carter got offered that program in London," one of them said. "Crazy opportunity. I'd go in a heartbeat." Did he accept? Not yet. But why wouldn't he? I stood frozen, latte in hand, heart in my throat. London. Of course he hadn't told me. Of course he'd wait until the last second, just like he always did with high-stakes decisions. I marched back to the dorm, fury building like a drumbeat. He was sitting on his bed when I burst in, laptop open, phone in hand, and that same stupid relaxed expression that used to drive me insane. London? I snapped. He looked up, blinked. You heard. You weren't going to tell me? I was. Eventually. Eventually? My voice cracked. When? When I walked into the room and you were gone? He sighed, stood, closed the laptop. Emma, it's just an offer. I haven't decided. But you didn't tell me. Why? He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking tired. Because I knew you'd look at me like that. Like I was betraying you. This isn't about betrayal, I said. It's about trust. I let you in. I let you get close. And you're still treating this like a game you have to win without telling me the rules. That's not fair. Isn't it? I spent 3 years trying to beat you, and now I finally stopped fighting, and you're already packing your bags. I'm not, he said. I haven't made a choice. Yes, you have. You just don't want to say it out loud. He stared at me, jaw tense, eyes sharp. You think I care more about a program than about you? I think you don't know how to choose anything without worrying about what it costs. And you think I don't want you to ask me to stay? The words hit like a slap. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because I hadn't. I hadn't asked. I'd assumed he'd just know. If I ask, will you? I whispered. I don't know, he said honestly. Because I don't want to stay and watch you resent me for it. I turned away, blinking hard. He crossed the room, wrapped his arms around me from behind, rested his chin on my shoulder. I love you, he said quietly. But I'm scared. Of wanting something too much. Of messing it up. Of staying and failing you. I leaned into him, letting the weight of us press together. I don't want to be another reason you shrink your world. Then ask me, he said. Ask me to stay. And I will. I turned to face him, tears on the edge of my lashes. Not yet. I need to know you'd choose me without being told to. He nodded, slowly. Fair enough. But I saw the crack in him then. The same one I felt in myself. And for the first time I wondered if love alone would be enough. He didn't bring it up again. And I didn't ask. We went back to our rhythm, shared textbooks, stolen glances, heated debates over study schedules, but something was missing now. The warmth. The certainty. That invisible thread that tied us together had gone slack. He still brought me coffee. I still laughed at his jokes. But our eyes didn't hold as long, our hands didn't linger, and the distance between our beds suddenly felt wider than a continent. I spent nights wondering what I should have said. If I should have begged him to stay, wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered please, don't go. But that wasn't me. And that wasn't us. We were never built on begging. We were built on challenge. On defiance. On the undeniable pull of two people who swore they couldn't stand each other, until they couldn't stay away. Finals week arrived like a storm cloud, and we both threw ourselves into it. The distraction was welcome. Between sleepless nights and endless pages of review, there was no time to think about train stations or airports or the space between maybe and goodbye. But every night, I lay awake and listened to his breathing. Wondered if I'd hear it for the last time in that room. Then the last day of exams came. I finished my final test, turned it in with shaking fingers, and walked out of the building with the strange emptiness of a closed chapter pressing into my chest. I wanted to run back to the dorm and find him still there. I wanted to open the door and see his jacket slung over the chair, his book spread across the desk. But when I pushed the door open, his side was empty. Bed stripped. Desk cleared. Closet bare. My chest cracked open like a fault line. No note. No message. Nothing. I sank onto my bed and stared at the blank space across from me. All the moments we'd shared flooded back at once, his voice teasing me in the dark, his hand brushing mine at the corkboard, his lips on mine in the middle of a storm. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat there, stunned by how quickly something that felt like everything could vanish. Hours passed. I barely moved. At some point I must have fallen asleep sitting up, because the next thing I knew, someone was knocking on the door. A sharp, impatient knock. I stumbled to open it. And there he was. Ryan Carter. Bag slung over one shoulder, hair a mess, eyes frantic. I stared. You left. I got to the station, he said, breathless. Sat there for 40 minutes. Got on the train. Got off before it left. Ran back. And now I'm here. Why? I whispered. Because you didn't ask me to stay, he said. And I realized I didn't need you to. I needed to want it enough on my own. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. And do you? Yes, he said. I choose you. Without being asked. Without being told. I choose this room. This life. This fight. I choose you, Emma. I didn't wait. I launched into him, arms around his neck, mouth on his, tears finally spilling. He dropped his bag and kissed me like he had something to prove. Like he'd almost let the best thing he ever had slip away. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. So. I'm staying. But only if you let me win one argument a week. I laughed through my tears. Fine. But only the easy ones. Deal. And just like that, the tension snapped. The rivalry faded. And what was left wasn't about who won or lost. It was about everything we'd built between the battles. A story written in glances, in late-night whispers, in sharp tongues and soft hands. We were no longer opponents. We were home. Graduation came faster than either of us expected. One day we were fighting over exam flashcards and who stole the last protein bar, and the next, we were standing in stiff black robes surrounded by balloons and cameras and people shouting each other's names. Our names were called back to back. Of course they were. Top of the class, tied GPA, shared accolades. It was the perfect ending to the rivalry everyone thought defined us. But what no one knew was how that rivalry had burned down into something quieter, something steadier. Something deeper. I watched him as he crossed the stage, confident as always, giving the dean his signature half-smirk before shaking his hand. He looked straight at me when he stepped down. Like even in a room filled with people, I was still the one person he needed to see. After the ceremony, families and friends swarmed around us. I hugged my mom, posed for photos, smiled until my face ached. But all the while, I kept looking for him. And finally, through the crowd, he found me. He held up 2 iced coffees. My usual order. For the girl who beat me by 0.03%, he said. Technically we tied. Technically, he said, handing me the cup. But I'm letting you have this one. Consider it your graduation gift. Generous, I said. What's mine? A surprise, he replied, then nodded toward the courtyard. Come on. We walked side by side through the campus that had been our battleground for years. Past the library where we fought over the last whiteboard. Past the lab where he knocked over my entire model and then spent 3 hours helping me rebuild it. Past the vending machine we both hated but kept using anyway. Everything looked the same. But nothing felt the same. He stopped under a tree by the old debate building and pulled something from his pocket. A folded sheet of paper. I raised an eyebrow. Please tell me that's not another scholarship you forgot to mention. No, he said, unfolding it. It's the acceptance letter. The London program. I turned it down officially. My breath caught. When? 2 days after I came back. I wanted to be sure. But not just about staying. About what I was staying for. And I'm sure. He handed me the letter. The official seal was broken. The signature clear. I held it like it was heavier than paper. That was your dream. You were never in the dream, he said. Because back then, I didn't let myself want things that felt impossible. But then we shared a room. And everything changed. I stared at him. At the boy who once beat me by 2 points in a chemistry final and laughed about it for a week. At the man who now looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. So what now? I asked. He stepped closer, reached for my hand. Now we write the next chapter. No tests. No trophies. Just us. Still rivals? I teased. He grinned. Always. I plan to argue with you for the rest of our lives. Bring it on. He pulled me into his arms, kissed me like he meant it, and for the first time, I let go of every grudge, every number, every old wound I once clung to. We had been enemies. Then something else. And now, something more. Love had crept in through sarcasm and late night studying and a single shared room with 2 beds and one unspoken truth. The rivalry ended the moment we stopped trying to win. Because in the end, we didn't have to beat each other. We just had to choose each other. And we did. Every single day. Starting now.